In the quiet town of São Joaquim das Flores, Maria Elena Silveira, a 28-year-old teacher, lived her days between classrooms and the romantic dreams she had cherished since childhood. Her delicate figure and bright brown eyes reflected the hope of one day finding true love and having the wedding of her dreams. On an autumn afternoon, while walking through the central square after another day of teaching, Maria Elena bumped into a tall, well-dressed man. He was Carlos Augusto Mendonça, or at least that's how he introduced himself. With a charming smile and refined manners, Carlos apologized for the collision and invited Maria Elena for coffee. The following weeks were a whirlwind of emotions for Maria Elena. Carlos was attentive, caring, and seemed to have stepped right out of her most intimate dreams. The successful businessman took her to dinners at expensive restaurants, gifted her fine jewelry, and spoke of a bright future together. After just a month of dating, on a starry night by the town's lake, Carlos proposed to Maria Elena. With tears in her eyes and her heart racing, she accepted without hesitation. News of the sudden engagement spread through the town, causing a stir among the residents, but Maria Elena was too blinded by love to notice any warning signs. Wedding preparations began immediately. Maria Elena dove headfirst into the details of the dress, ceremony, and reception. Carlos insisted on paying for everything, asking only that Maria Elena transfer her savings to a joint account so they could start their married life on the right foot. The big day finally arrived. São Joaquim's church was beautifully decorated with white flowers and satin ribbons. Guests eagerly awaited the bride's entrance. Maria Elena, radiant in her white dress, walked towards the altar, her heart overflowing with happiness. But the smile on her face soon faded. Upon reaching the altar, she didn't find her beloved Carlos. Instead, she was met by a sheriff and 2 police officers. With a grave voice and compassionate look, the sheriff revealed the shocking truth: Carlos Augusto Mendonça didn't exist. The man she was about to marry was actually Ricardo Mendes, a con artist wanted in 3 states for fraud and embezzlement. Before the horrified gaze of the guests, Maria Elena discovered that all her savings had disappeared along with Ricardo. The dream of perfect love had turned into a nightmare of betrayal and deception. Without saying a word, Maria Elena ran out of the church, her white dress billowing behind her like a ghost of what could have been. That night, Maria Elena Silveira disappeared without a trace, taking with her only the pain of disappointment and the weight of a broken heart. The small town of São Joaquim das Flores was in shock, unaware that this was just the beginning of a much darker story that was about to unfold. A year had passed since Maria Elena's disappearance. Life in São Joaquim das Flores seemed to have returned to normal, but a gloomy atmosphere hung over the town. The case of the abandoned bride had become a story whispered in dark corners, a cautionary tale for young lovers. Everything changed on a full moon night when Luciano and Pedro, a couple about to get married, were found in a state of shock in the old church. They babbled incoherently about a woman in white who had attacked them, her empty eyes full of hatred and pain. At first, the authorities dismissed the incident as a case of pre-wedding jitters. But the strange events didn't stop there. In the following weeks, other engaged couples reported similar experiences. Some spoke of an icy presence following them, others swore they had seen a spectral figure in a mud-stained wedding dress in their house mirrors. Fear began to spread through the town like an epidemic. Tension reached its peak when Ana and Roberto's wedding was interrupted by an inexplicable phenomenon. The moment the priest asked if anyone objected to the union, the church doors violently flew open, letting in a blast of icy wind. The candles went out, and in the darkness, guests heard an agonizing lament that seemed to come from all directions. When the lights came back on, the bride had vanished, leaving behind only a torn veil. Ana was found hours later, wandering in the forest on the outskirts of town, her dress in tatters and her eyes glazed with terror. She repeated incessantly, she doesn't want anyone else to get married. She says love is a lie.
Penic 7 in São Joaquim das Flores.
Weddings were cancelled, engagements broken off. The church, once a symbol of union and hope, now remained closed, its doors chained. Older residents began to speak of a curse, whispering Maria Elena's name with a mixture of pity and fear. It was in this climate of terror that Clara Monteiro, a young and ambitious journalist from the capital's newspaper, arrived in town. Intrigued by the story she had heard, Clara was determined to uncover the truth behind the supernatural events terrorizing São Joaquim das Flores. Armed with her camera, recorder, and unshakable curiosity, Clara began interviewing residents, collecting accounts, and investigating Maria Elena's past. She didn't know it, but her search for the truth would lead her to confront forces beyond her understanding and unearth secrets that might be better left buried. As Clara delved deeper into her investigation, the supernatural presence seemed to grow stronger. Objects moved on their own in her hotel room, and she often woke up feeling like she was being watched. One night, looking out the window, Clara saw a figure in white standing under a streetlight. When she blinked, the apparition had vanished, leaving behind only an intense cold sensation and a whisper in the wind, "Find me." Clara knew she was on the right track, but she had no idea of the horrors yet to come. Maria Elena's story was far from over, and São Joaquim das Flores would become the stage for a confrontation between the world of the living and the realm of the dead. Clara Monteiro dove headfirst into her investigation, determined to unravel the mystery that haunted São Joaquim das Flores. Her nights were spent sifting through dusty files at the town hall, and her mornings interviewing residents reluctant to share their experiences. A breakthrough came when Clara met Dona Zulmira, a former neighbor of Maria Elena. The elderly lady, with trembling hands and tearful eyes, told Clara about the night of the disappearance. "I saw her, you know, after she fled the church. Maria Elena ran past my house, her white dress stained with mud and tears. She was screaming that she would make Ricardo pay, that no one else would be deceived as she was." Intrigued, Clara intensified her search. She discovered that in the months leading up to her disappearance, Maria Elena had made frequent visits to an old house on the outskirts of town, locally known as the Witch's House. Residents avoided the place, saying it was haunted. Arming herself with courage, Clara decided to investigate the house. The interior was covered in dust and cobwebs, but signs of recent occupation were visible. In a back room, Clara made a shocking discovery. The walls were covered with strange symbols and photographs of Ricardo Mendes, all marked with a red X. In the center of the room, an improvised altar contained black candles, dried herbs, and an ancient leather-bound book. Upon opening the book, Clara felt a shiver run down her spine. It was a grimoire of black magic, with pages marked in revenge rituals and spirit invocation. Suddenly, the room temperature dropped drastically. Clara heard a whisper in her ear, "You want to know the truth? Then come find me where it all began." The voice was cold, laden with pain and anger. Trembling, Clara hastily left the house. She knew she was dealing with something beyond the natural, but her journalistic determination compelled her to continue. On her way back to town, she made two crucial stops. The first was at the local church, where she found Father Anselmo. The old priest listened to her story with a grave expression. "My child," he said, "you are dealing with dangerous forces. Maria Elena may have resorted to the dark arts in her quest for vengeance. We need to help her find peace, or this curse will never end." The second stop was at Madame Selina's house, a well-known medium in the region. The middle-aged woman, with piercing eyes, held Clara's hands and shuddered. Maria Elena's spirit is trapped between worlds, consumed by anger and betrayal. She has become a vengeful entity, a ghost bride who wants to prevent others from experiencing the happiness she was denied. Armed with this knowledge, Clara knew what she needed to do. She had to find Maria Elena where it all began, the church where the fateful wedding was supposed to have taken place. But as she prepared for this confrontation, Clara didn't realize she was being watched. In the darkness, a figure in a mud-stained white dress observed her, its empty eyes glowing with a mixture of anger and anticipation. The final confrontation was about to begin, and the fate of São Joaquim das Flores hung by a thread. The following night, under a sky heavy with dark clouds, Clara headed to the abandoned church. Father Anselmo and Madame Selina accompanied her, each carrying the instruments of their faith, the priest with his Bible and holy water, the medium with crystals and protective herbs. As they arrived at the church, the air seemed dense, charged with supernatural energy. The doors opened by themselves with a chilling creak, inviting them in. Inside, the darkness was almost palpable, broken only by the flickering light of the candles Clara and her companions carried. "Maria Elena," Clara called, her voice echoing off the stone walls, "we're here to help. Please show yourself to us." An icy wind blew down the central aisle, extinguishing the candles. In the dark, they heard the sound of slow footsteps and the rustling of a dress. When Father Anselmo managed to relight his candle, they all gasped. Before them stood Maria Elena, or what was left of her. Her wedding dress, once white and immaculate, was now stained with mud and torn. Her face, once radiant with happiness, was now a mask of pain and fury. Her eyes, empty and black as bottomless wells, fixed on Clara. "You wanted to find me," Maria Elena's voice was an icy whisper, "Here I am. You can't help me. No one can. I just want everyone to feel the pain I felt." Clara stepped forward, her heart pounding frantically. "Maria Elena, I understand your pain. What Ricardo did to you was terrible. But punishing other innocent couples won't bring justice or peace." Maria Elena's specter screamed, a high-pitched supernatural sound that made the church windows tremble. Objects began to fly through the air, crashing against the walls. "You don't understand anything. They all lie. They all betray. No one deserves to be happy if I couldn't be." Father Anselmo began reciting prayers, sprinkling holy water around, while Madame Selina tried to establish a spiritual connection to calm the enraged spirit. But Maria Elena's anger was too powerful. With a gesture, she threw the priest and the medium against the church walls, knocking them unconscious. Clara found herself alone, face to face with a vengeful spirit. "Maria Elena, please," Clara pleaded, "think about who you were. A teacher, someone who inspired and helped others. This hatred isn't you. You're stronger than this." For a moment, the fury in Maria Elena's eyes faltered. Clara saw a spark of the woman she used to be. Seizing this moment, Clara continued, "I know you suffered, but there's a way to find peace. We can expose Ricardo, bring justice. But first, you need to let go of this anger. It's hurting you more than anyone else." Clara's words seemed to reach something deep in Maria Elena. The supernatural wind began to subside, and the floating objects fell to the floor. Tears of an ethereal, shimmering liquid began to run down Maria Elena's spectral face. "I just wanted to be loved." Maria Elena's voice was now a broken sob. "I didn't want to hurt anyone." Clara, her heart breaking at the spirit's evident pain, reached out her hand. "It's not too late to do the right thing. Let us help you find peace." As Clara's hand approached Maria Elena's spirit, the church was enveloped in a brilliant light. The confrontation had reached a crucial point, but the fate of Maria Elena and São Joaquim das Flores was still to be decided. The light enveloping the church pulsed like a living heart, growing in intensity with each moment. Clara and Maria Elena's spirit remained motionless, connected by a touch that transcended the barriers between the worlds of the living and the dead. Slowly, Maria Elena's spectral appearance began to change. The anger and hatred that distorted her features dissipated, revealing the gentle face of the teacher she once was. Her eyes, once empty, now shone with a mixture of sadness and relief. "I remember now," Maria Elena spoke, her voice echoing as if coming from far away. "After I fled the church, I wandered aimlessly. I ended up in the forest, near the old abandoned well. I was so desperate, so hurt." The memories cascaded, not just for Maria Elena, but also for Clara, who saw them as if they were her own memories. The devastated bride, stumbling in the darkness of the forest, her tears mixing with the mud that stained her white dress. The well, its black mouth like an invitation to oblivion. Maria Elena, in her despair, approaching too close to the slippery edge. "It was an accident," Clara whispered, understanding. "You fell." Maria Elena nodded, ethereal tears running down her translucent face. "I didn't want to die. I just wanted the pain to stop." But when I fell, my anger and my pain got trapped with me. I couldn't move on. At that moment, Father Anselmo and Madame Selina, who had regained consciousness, joined Clara. United, they formed a circle around Maria Elena's spirit. "It's not too late to find peace," Father Anselmo spoke softly. "You can let go of the anger and pain. They don't define who you are." Madame Selina added, her voice laden with compassion, "Your spirit can be free, Maria Elena."